Back at it again with the Mobius Stickus, chapter 130, The Hat. So we continue our run of Ahab-centered chapters which accelerate Ahab's obsession and monomania towards the conclusion of the book. And of course, we've talked about the needle. We've talked about meeting the Rachel and Captain Gardenier, and now we're finally kind of finishing that trinity with the hat, another image of Ahab's separation or isolation or alienation from the world and from other people. So first we have a very, I think, pleasurable description of Ahab's domination of his crew. I think the word choice here is really good. It says, as the unsetting polar star which through the livelong Arctic 6 months' night sustains its piercing, steady central gaze, so Ahab's purpose now fixedly gleamed down upon the constant midnight of the gloomy crew. It domineered above them so that all their bodings, doubts, misgivings, fears were fain to hide beneath their souls and not sprout forth a single spear or leaf. What a metaphor. In this foreshadowing interval, too, all humor, forced or natural, vanished. Stubb no more strove to raise a smile, Starbuck no more strove to check one. Alike, joy and sorrow, hope and fear seemed ground to finest dust and powdered for the time in the clamped mortar of Ahab's iron soul. Like machines, they dumbly moved about the deck, ever conscious that the old man's despot eye was on them. Ooh, I think that's just some great writing. I don't have anything profound to say about it. Just say is that everything is kind of swirling around this whirlwind, this tempest of Ahab's obsession, and people are starting to lose their own characteristics and traits in the face of Ahab's just dominating force of personality. And that's why he said, I haven't gone into this much, and maybe we should save it for concluding thoughts, but this is these 3 chapters, 124, 128, 130, are part of the reason that Ahab is so timeless, because he's just such a good stand-in for any dictator, tyrant, cult leader, anyone who has taken people and just has such a gravitational pull around them that it seems you can't break free. It's just strong stuff. So we move on, and it says that Ahab seems to be obsessed or controlled himself by Fedallah, and Fedallah seems to sit on the deck and not eat and not move. It's kind of monkish. It's a weird situation. But then ultimately later in the chapter, Ahab decides he needs to get up to the masthead and be the person who spots Moby Dick. And then, of course, we have what ultimately is the upshot of him climbing up to the masthead near the end of the chapter, where it says, now the first time Ahab was perched aloft, ere he had been there 10 minutes, one of those red-billed savage seahawks which so often fly incommodiously close round the manned mastheads of whalemen in these latitudes, one of these birds came wheeling and screaming round his head in a maze of untrackably swift circlings. Then it darted 1,000 feet straight up into the air, then spiralized downwards and went eddying again round his head. But with his gaze fixed upon the dim and distant horizon, Ahab seemed not to mark this wild bird, nor indeed would anyone else have marked it much, it being no uncommon circumstance, only now almost the least heedful eye seemed to see some sort of cunning meaning in almost every sight. So I think that's a nice wink to the audience that is 130 chapters into Moby Dick, and is understanding now that most of these chapters have some character implication or figurative meaning, if not all of them. So the people on the Pequod have the same type of constant searching for meaning now that I guess a reader of Moby Dick would too. But Ahab's not looking for that because he's so obsessed with finding Moby Dick, and thus the bird, the Seahawk that dives at Ahab, steals his hat. Right? And thus we have this final paragraph here. An eagle flew thrice round Tarquin's head, removing his cap to replace it, and thereupon Tanaquil, his wife, declared that Tarquin would be king of Rome. So, if you're curious, Tarquin is a reference to Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, who was the 5th king of ancient Rome before they became a republic. And in the famous History of Rome by Livy, the legend of the eagle selecting Tarquin is relayed. And that's obviously an image of a good omen, with an eagle taking one's hat. But only by replacing of the cap was that omen accounted good, Melville says. Ahab's hat was never restored. The wild hawk flew on and on with it, and far in advance of the prow, and at last disappeared. while from the point of that disappearance a minute black spot was dimly discerned, falling from that vast height into the sea. So, obviously, the powers of nature or God or intentionality or meaning or whatever are taking something from Ahab and dropping it into the sea, and he doesn't seem to notice. So is the hat his humanity, his reason, his control? Yes. You know, I struggle with the particular image of the hat. The one thing that it seems that we can say about it is that it rests upon the head, right? It has this association, especially with the allusion to Tarquin, of power or of prestige or of representation, of achievement, and being related to one's thoughts, seeing as it's on one's head. And it seems that Ahab's obsession, or the blindness rather, caused by his obsession, has left him ignorant to the costs or things lost that we've been talking about in 124 and 128 due to his pursuit of Moby Dick. So I like to think, as I said, that these 3 chapters, and generally this stretch of chapters, forms a grouping of Melville really pointing out all the different ways that Ahab's obsession is costing himself and other people, and he does that through all of these figurative images: the needle, the meeting with the Rachel, the hat, and it's all working towards the same point. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.